Welcome to This Week in Morgan County. I'm your host, Russell Mokhiber. Our guest this week is Paul Fogarty. Paul is with the Fairfax Coffee House here in Berkeley Springs, West Virginia. Paul, welcome to the show.
It's good to be here, Russell.
What brought you to Morgan County?
Wow. That started back in 2004 or 5 when I decided I wanted to move out of the DC area, and 3 or 4 times friends kept suggesting for no particular reason and didn't know each other that I come out to Berkeley Springs, West Virginia. And whenever I get messages like that, it's like, okay, I got to at least check it out. And I wanted to move out of the area. I could afford land out here, and I did. I built my home, and I've stayed. It's been wonderful.
What was your life's work before coming to Berkeley Springs?
I've been a gardener most of my life, and I've been involved in what I'd call men's work, New Age men's work for the past 20-something years in the Mankind Project. And that, I think, kept me focused on what matters most to me. And sometimes it's career, but generally not. It tends to be what matters most for the world that's going to be here when I'm gone.
How'd you get involved with the Fairfax Coffee House?
Trey Johansson, my partner, came to me one day, and we, I think, picked up on the community grief over the Fairfax Coffee House closing down, and it seemed like a center. It felt like the heart of the town being pulled out, frankly. So I was shocked that it was even possible. I understand with the building burning down, the street renovation project, that a lot of people were impacted by it, and she just started asking questions a few places, found a way to finance it and make it happen. There were still people that worked there, the past managers, and we built it back up, and it was quick because everything was still in place, and thank God.
What year was it? What year was the fire?
That was 2 years. Oh, the fire I think was like 4 or 5 years ago.
5 years ago.
But she purchased it 2 years ago. Took about a month to get it prepared, and then we got it up and going. And
then your new project is the place of the burned down building on Fairfax.
Right, yeah. That was
How did that come about?
That came about slowly over the course of a year. It was an open field, and you had a sign sitting in the middle of it. I think it was a lot of possibilities, or lots of possibilities. And it felt like an empty space in the center of town. So I'm somebody that is curious about when people keep talking about things over and over again, and a lot of grief left over. I think a lot of people were both personally hurt by it and feel the absence of it. And so I'd ask people, what would you want to see there? And I started collecting ideas informally. Then some of our staff did, Trey did, and we just kept getting different feedback, and there started to be a theme that showed up. People kept talking about wanting a place where families could go, where people could congregate, that was more of an outdoor space, that had games or things people could play at. And so the one idea that held everything together was a beer garden. It's outdoors, it's semi-open, and unfortunately, building in a floodplain is really difficult. And so
yeah, because we had heard that people were looking at it to build a building.
Yeah, they were, and that's really expensive. Apparently, to build, you've got to build. Once the foundation was demolished, or not the foundation, but the main structure and the facade was demolished, there's all sorts of laws with FEMA that have to do with the flood zone area that don't allow you to rebuild except to certain specifications. And I think that was beyond most people's scope.
Did you look at building there?
We briefly looked at it, and everyone kept saying that just the expense of doing it, and a lot of people recommended it, so we thought about it. But everything, there were what I call stop and go lights, and there were just nothing but stop lights every time we inquired down that road. And I think a lot of people want it, but it would take funds way beyond what I believe we have available.
When did you buy the property?
I bought the property, I believe, last November. And it wasn't just us, it was a number of people who are local. So Jeff and Alice at Portals, Friend Charlie Curia, who lives locally, Trey and I at Fairfax Coffee House, put into buying the land, and then we're investing in building it out right now.
And what is a beer garden?
A beer garden can mean a lot of things. I think one of the things that's best about it is that it's a fairly open-ended term, and they're showing up in a lot of inner cities and rural environments because it fills a niche in the community. My understanding of a beer garden is more of a European style tradition, so you have open seating, which means it's picnic tables, and you sit next to people, not private seating like a restaurant, but open seating, so you're sitting next to people that you may not know, get to know them a little bit. We want to have games for kids of all ages, outdoor chessboard, cornhole, darts, bocce, possibly a climbing wall. And those are the ideas that people have kept given to us over and over again. And my job has mainly been to hold those all in mind. We want to have artists and performers be able to have a place where they can be visible, present. And we have a really simple rule for performers and artists. If people are moving towards you, then you can keep doing whatever it is you're doing. And if they're moving away, then you have to go with them. And we've been telling performers that, and pretty much everyone has that same reaction. It's that informal way of saying, make yourself welcoming, make yourself open, use the space, and we want it to be used for as many different things as possible.
Well, people know the open space. People in town know the open space. Let's say we're in the open space looking out towards the park.
Towards the park, yeah.
Describe what it's going to look like. Is it all going to be covered?
No, thank you. Actually, that's actually how I operate is, I've been a gardener most of my life, so the way I step into a property, I see what's there, and my mind eliminates the stuff that doesn't belong, and I have to keep doing that over and over again. So what it looks like from the inside looking out is there's a stage on one side that's fairly elevated because we have to be above floodplain.
Looking out, it's on the left side?
Looking out, it's on the left side. There's a large area that is shaded, covered seating that's open. And then hopefully eventually.
That's on the right side?
That is on the right side.
So on the left side, stage that's covered.
Left side, stage that's covered.
On the right side, open seating,
open
covered.
Seating, covered.
You're building
with
a cover
shade
over
tarps.
the top.
So it's not covered in the sense that let rain through. It's essentially open, trees. So the idea is to cool the space so that it's comfortable most of the year. It's probably a 3-season space as we're designing it right now. Hopefully, eventually, there'll be a space for a small building on the property, but that would be a second phase when we're ready for that.
Well, the reason I say on the right side covered, because driving in here today, I looked over there, and it looks like there's a structure that looks like a cover.
That's just scaffolding. That's scaffolding to work on. As if you noticed, because if you did look over, the wall against the Fairfax Coffee House, when that wall was removed, you now have an interior wall which is uninsulated. So it's a horrible impact. Plus, it's a pretty ugly wall, just because of the damage from the fire and there were interior walls. So we want to cover that up. I have the first 12 feet done. That may be a bouldering wall. Trey used to be a rock climbing instructor, so that provides, once again, community engagement and entertainment. Above that, what we want to do is insulate that wall also and have that completely smooth and flat. And that's the next phase we're working on right now. And artists can then design something, so we've got a beautiful display area.
Nice. So it'll, once again, left side stage covered.
Yes.
Right side, open seating, covered with what?
Just shade tarps.
Shade tarps,
Yeah,
like
shade tarps.
Standalones, umbrellas?
There's
Umbrellas?
no, full stretch, 24 by 12 foot shade tarps, sun tarps. So the sun and rain come through, but only like 30%. So you get a cooler area because sitting out in the sun in the summer isn't much of an option. So you want an area where you can sit, and then throughout the rest of it, as much garden, vines, color, flowers, hanging baskets as we can to just like we did out front. The reason we put the pots out front was to put something beautiful right out front. And then of course that wind that took over the whole state a couple months ago, blasted half the fence down despite the anchoring. And so it smashed a bunch of the pots. But the main reason for the fence, of course, is people still peek over the fence constantly. It's hard to get work done. I probably wouldn't get anything done.
People would be coming
People
by
would be
talking.
they would be coming by talking all day long. So the level of interest is phenomenal. People really want to see something. They want to see it happen soon. We've got so much budget and labor and time, so we want to do it as soon as possible this year. And it's a creative process. We're involving artists in the process, including a wrought iron wall that may go, not a wall, but a fence in the front that's a decorative feature so that there's a bottle wall and wrought iron that's visible from the outside. So you can see through it somewhat, but it's also a barrier. So water can flow through, et cetera, which we need to do. But there's a lot of rules to follow, and that's what we're focusing on.
Between the open seating and the stage is going to be a dance floor? Do you have a dance floor there?
Think of it more as a patio. The intention is an outdoor chessboard. So raised a little bit so it stands out. And a few people are looking at where we can find like resin pieces, because moving 2-foot tall stone pieces would be too laborious. Some people want to do live people as a chessboard, but I don't know of a single person who can stand still for 2 hours during a chess match. So I don't think that's going to happen. But we want to have a chessboard that can be, because it's facing the stage, would be a dance area, I suppose. That'd be an option.
What do you plan for food and drink?
Right now, that's still in the works. There's many possibilities. It could be a food cart as an interim, or a food truck. And eventually, if we do build out and there's a building in the center, towards the back, then it would be kitchen, bathrooms, and everything you need to have for a full structure. But it would be not what we're talking about, the whole building filling the space. It would be a much smaller and raised on piers, so it would be above the floodplain.
And what's the name of the place?
The one we first came across BSWV, and that isn't catching. So the word that is coming that seems to be capturing is the source. We have the running of the waters here. We have the Berkeley Springs, actual spring itself, and the source often means a spring archaically. When people talk about it, they're usually often talking about water. It also feels like source of life, source of art, source of beauty. So we're hoping that name catches on and people will start referring to it that way.
You also spoke about the music and how it will work. Are you going to schedule performances, or is it going to be more open mic?
Right now, we've talked to people who are local artists and performers, and there are no specific plans, so that's still in the process. A lot of people are interested in a range of possibilities. So right now, I'm probably not going to be the arts manager, but I'll probably be involved in that. And like I said, that premise about if people are moving towards you, you can keep going, and if not, you go with them. We want something that's going to evolve organically. It'll probably end up more scheduled as it matures, but that's what artists are going to determine amongst themselves.
It seems as if it's too small of a space for electrical music.
Oh, you mean like a big rock band or something like that?
Or just electric music as opposed to acoustic?
I have no clue. This is like well outside my specialty.
Okay.
I mean, I think we're going to go to the Black Cat, Regina, a lot of people who've actually been performers and understand it better than certainly I do. And we're going to take community input and involvement. My main job is to take all that diverse advice, because not everyone agrees,
Right.
and then feed back to them when I see a pattern. And that's something I learned when I was in men's work, is there's a consensus that can show up in the room. And if you're sensitive to it, then most people will respond to that and go, yeah, that is kind of what the majority of people are tending towards. And it's not the same as a democratic vote. It's more of a sense of, yeah, that is more or less what we want, so let's move in that direction. And then you adjust as we go.
One of the things people seem to be excited about is the concert in the park and being able to sit at the source and have a drink and listen to music.
Yeah, both ways.
So have you heard this? I mean, is that...
I have not heard that. One of the things we're looking for is we get mostly good news, and sometimes people talk to me over the fence or at Fairfax Coffee House. We have a suggestion box. We have not had a single message put in that.
A suggestion box?
Yeah,
Where is
right
that?
at the gate. There's a little, like, 2-foot wide gate so I can let people in and out from the front, so you don't have to go all the way around the back. And right now there's security cameras up, so the whole area is secured. We know if somebody's there that they shouldn't be. But there's a suggestion box right to the right of the gate. And so if people have ideas, or talk to us directly, to Trey, myself, Jeff, Alice, Charlie, if you see him. But get the ideas to us, talk to us directly, and I'll feed back to you. If something really seems impossible, I'll be honest about that. Like if somebody says you want to build a full-scale, historically authentic building, I'm going to say, I don't think that's going to happen. But if they want to see retail of certain things or certain games or certain arts projects brought in, I want to include those.
How is the space going to be secured? You mentioned a gate in the front. Is there going to be a gate in the back, or?
We will, the gate that's in the front, the fence that's in the front, will probably be moved as it is, a two-sided to the back, and there will be a separated parking area. And that's really business parking only, so it won't be public parking, mainly because there's a very tight alley, and I don't think we want just everyone going through that alley. It's 8 feet wide. It really should be treated with some care, otherwise you run into buildings on either side. So it won't be public parking.
And then you mentioned this wrought iron fence up front, and that will be a locked gate. So you'll be able to secure the place once it's not up. What are going to be the hours, the days they're open and the hours?
Not positive, but this seems more of a afternoon and evening space. So it'll probably be something that could start in the middle of the day, could be weekends. So we haven't determined the use of the space, and people are still looking at that. Games sort of lend themselves to a daytime activity. Performance lend themselves more often to evening or nighttime activities. There's a beautiful white wall over the stage. What we'd love to be able to do with a change in copyright, and all the silent movies are now pretty much copyright free, is to be able to project those sound free and just have a visual image that can be projected onto that wall, and that's one of the ideas we're looking at.
It's going to be a beer garden. I assume you're applying for a liquor license now, or?
Trey has been talking to the state. There's all sorts of, and I think fairly hard to comprehend rules in West Virginia about what is okay and what isn't. So we're working through that process slowly. If that happens at a future phase, then it happens at a future phase. If it is impossible for some reason, then we'll deal with that. If it requires steps to go through and rules, then we have to go through that process. But that's what we've committed to.
Are we talking about a beer garden without beer for a while?
I have no clue. I hope it has beer. I like especially microbrewers, and there's a wide range of them. I mean, if you've been to Ravenwood, Regina's place, Ravenwood, it's got an amazing set of beers, and it's not a gigantic amount. There's so many ideas for beer gardens, like self-serve on tap. I'm hearing about all the possibilities. So beer garden is, and that's why I use the German when I write it sometimes, B-I-E-R, G-A-R-T-E-N, is just to say, okay, this is an unknown right now, and we're still determining what it is. And the community is determining with us what it is.
Yeah. Obviously a lot of excitement in the community about it.
I'm glad to hear it, and I want to hear more about it.
And so when do you think? What is your anticipated?
I would love this to be some form of a start by the end of the summer or fall. It'd be wonderful to have something begin by then. Right. But we don't want to start too early where it looks like it's still in process. So there's some intermediary point where we've still got things to do and plants are still growing. and there's still projects ongoing, but it's not a risk to people who are going to be enjoying the space.
All right. And if people wanted to reach you, stop by the Fairfax or
Fairfax Coffee House, yeah,
or
you
drop
can-
a note in the
drop a
suggestion
note
box.
in there. Talk to our staff at the Fairfax Coffee House, so they pass stuff on all the time. Don't wave to me while I'm on a ladder or on the scaffolding or halfway up a wall somewhere and shout something out. Safety Last is the first film that I think Harold Lloyd released. So we're going to try to not put that last. I'd like to survive to the opening.
Yeah. And we all look forward to it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much and congratulations.
Thank you.
Paul
It's good
Fogarty.
being here.
Thank you for joining us and thank you for watching This Week in Morgan County.